We are just now 1 day away from one of the most important presidential elections of our time. So I know what you're really thinking. You're thinking, Ben, why did I only receive one video from you last week? Well, the answer to that is pretty simple. I actually have some pretty big, awesome news, non-election related. On a lighter note, we just recently got a dog. So her name is Ember. She's a 3-year-old golden doodle, and she is just the sweetest dog that you have ever met. And so we got her last week, and we have been slowly transitioning her to our house, making sure that she feels comfortable. So that explains my delay in getting this video out, but here it is, and it couldn't probably have come at a better time because mail-in ballots is something that could potentially change our election and certainly the results that we will be receiving tomorrow in a large way. So I will get into what mail-in ballots are and the controversy surrounding them. So that's really important information for you to learn, so stick around. We'll get into all of that right here. I'm Ben Leach, and this is The Ben Leach Show. Now, before we get into the video, as always, I would like to give a shout out to one of my subscribers who commented. And this video is, this shout out is going to my dad, Clark Leach. He found my channel not through me, but through my brother, who then proceeded to watch all of my videos and has expressed his deep support for my videos. So thank you so much, Dad. I really appreciate that you like my videos. Let's get down to brass tacks. When we're talking about mail-in ballots, there really is a difference between the different categories that you might find when it comes to absentee or mail-in ballots. So there's basically 3 different categories. One category is talking about states that exclusively do mail-in ballots for their form of election. So currently there were 5 states that operated under this category. So they would send out ballots to all registered voters who would then return those in specially marked boxes for returning or through the mail through USPS. The other group of states, which were 16 of them, fell into the category of they allowed absentee ballots, but only if you had a valid excuse. So we're talking about military, if you are out of the country, if you're studying at a university in a different state, or you are unable to because of medical reasons. Those are forms of valid excuses. And so you could apply to get an absentee ballot in those circumstances, but outside of those parameters, there's a good chance that you would actually be denied the absentee ballot that you are seeking. Now, the majority of the country, so 26 of those other states, operate under the no excuse needed for an absentee ballot category. So under those states' laws, you don't need a specific reason why you want an absentee ballot. As long as you request one, they obviously will send them to military people who are active duty. But other than that, you don't really need an excuse. As long as you just file for one, you will get one. But only those who request a ballot will receive a ballot. So that was how the structure was broken down previously. And up until very recently, that's how the system was. Now, however, this year clearly is very different, with coronavirus being something that is still on people's minds. There are other states now that have now adopted to become a part of the states that exclusively do mail-in ballots, meaning that states that didn't previously just send out ballots to all registered voters are now partaking in that system. So that is partly one of the controversies that surround this election in general, is that there are now 5 states that are important to the election that are going to be receiving ballots unsolicited, and the state might not actually have the current infrastructure to handle those ballots coming in. Now, what also has changed about this election is now there were previously 16, now there are only 5 states that need a valid excuse in order for them to send you an absentee ballot. The rest of the states have now adopted a no excuse needed absentee ballot system, meaning that for any reason at all, you can be sent one as long as you apply for one. So there has been a massive change in the way that many states are doing their mail-in ballots this year. Like I said, some states are opting to do it statewide, and in the case of New Jersey, that is the only way that you can vote. There is no in-person voting, it is just mail-in. So there are some concerns, obviously, that have stemmed from these states changing the way that they had been doing their elections. And so for the rest of the video, I'm really going to be focusing on the controversies that have been brought up, mainly on the conservative side, about why we should be taking a second look at these mail-in ballots. Now, the first concern, and this is probably the one that you have heard when talking about mail-in ballots, is that they could have the potential to have a lot more fraud than we would typically see in an election year. So in a typical election year, there are instances of fraud. You really can't escape it. But typically those instances are isolated because by and large, most people vote in person, and there were only 5 states that engaged in having mass mail-in ballots be sent to all registered voters. And in those states, that actually worked for them because they have the infrastructure to handle them. They have the correct boxes that many people can drop their ballots into or send them into the mail. And so they actually don't have many instances of fraud when it comes to that, but that doesn't mean that those cases don't exist. In fact, the Heritage Foundation did a study, just a random sample, just a small sampling, and found 1,200 cases of fraud when it comes to mail-in ballots, and in 1,100 of those cases it resulted in a criminal conviction. Now, I know this is only 1,100 instances of a criminal conviction compared to the millions and millions of ballots that have been cast. However, this is something that is still of concern to many people because of these 1,100 instances, rarely was it ever just one ballot that was on their conviction. It was either tens or hundreds, multiple hundreds of ballots that were tampered with. And in an election like 2020, where things could really come down to razor-thin margins, I mean, a couple of thousand votes in a certain state, and especially key swing states, could mean the difference between who holds the presidency. So that is really why people are very focused and concerned with that claim that we could see a lot more fraud in this election, because especially certain states are not mandating that those ballots be present at their polling site by November 3rd in certain instances, and actually 317 of the electoral votes that are accounted for out of the 538 that we have, 317 belong to states that aren't requiring those ballots to be in place by Election Day. In fact, even in cases like Washington State, they are accepting ballots that are at least postmarked on or before November 3rd to be accepted all the way until November 20th. So that's a huge disparity and a huge grace period that could open you up to having different tamperings with the collection of these ballots. There's obviously concern with ballot harvesting, but like I said, there really haven't been historical cases that this has happened, but it's because we're living the history right now. There aren't instances of mass mail-in ballot fraud because we've never had mass mail-in ballots, at least the size that we are having right now. So we are living in unprecedented times, and that really brings us to the second chief concern and the last one that we'll talk about in this video, which is just that because of the sheer volume of the mail-in ballots that we will be receiving this year, there is a really big concern that many states that are opting to change their system either to be all mail-in ballots or to just shift to no excuse mail-in ballots, they don't have the infrastructure to count those votes, and in many instances those votes won't be counted until Election Day. And that's especially in key swing states like Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, which could really determine the outcome of the election depending on what scenarios you subscribe to. But they can't start counting those ballots until on Election Day and after. So it really puts pressure on those states which are most likely going to receive an unprecedented number of mail-in ballots that they will be getting to count all of those. So that is really one of the chief concerns, is that on November 3rd, tomorrow, we might not know who the winner is. And that really gives great concern to a lot of people, because this election is very consequential for a number of reasons. But really, you can't get two candidates that are further apart than Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And it doesn't matter what political party you belong to, you would most likely, you really want to know who the president is by election day. And especially it affects the future of businesses, the future of the stock market, and it really can incite uncertainty and unsettle a lot of people if there isn't a definitive winner come election day. And that is really what we're looking at, most likely to be the case tomorrow, that we will get a lot of reporting, but like I said, because 317 electoral votes belong in states that are going to be accepting mail-in ballots a lot longer than just on November 3rd. Some are extending it a couple of days, some are extending it a week, and like I said, in the case of Washington State, they're extending it multiple weeks. So there is a chance that we don't know who the winner is. Now, that might change just based on the sheer volume of people who show up to vote, as compared to the percentage of people who chose to mail-in vote. But still, those are really the main concerns. Now, whether you think that those are concerns or not, or whether you think that there is data to back them up or not, is up to you to decide. I mean, I'm not here to try to undermine the election, but I am here to simply state some facts that you might or might not have heard about the reasons why people are concerned with mail-in ballots, and the reason why we might not actually have a declared winner come tomorrow. And there might be a lot of uncertainty on social media surrounding that, and there might just be a lot of uneasiness just in the public in general. So hopefully this video will give you some things to think about and present you with a new idea that you might not have heard before. But again, it is up to you to really kind of dig in and do more research if you think that these claims are substantiated or not. Let me know in the comments below what you think. If you think that this is a valid concern, or if you think that this is really kind of blown out of proportion, I would love to know your thoughts. And as always, please comment below whatever you would like to hear from me next, because I'm trying to tailor this content as specifically as possible to what you would want to hear. And so I've gotten some great feedback from a few of you, so I will definitely keep that in mind. But for now, stay safe, and I hope that you will all be tuning in tomorrow to election coverage wherever you're getting your news, because this will definitely be one of the defining moments, I believe, in our century and in our lifetime will be this election. So stay tuned for that. I will be back here Thursday, probably breaking some of that down, talking about that. So please tune in there. I promise that I will get a video out on Thursday. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your morning, afternoon, or evening, or whenever you are watching this. Thank you so much. And that's all I have for you right now. I'm Ben Leach. Have a great day.